Welcome everybody to the start of sessions at Drupal Camp Atlanta. I'm happy to be with y'all here today. I'm Jeff Deeks, work at Media Current. I am fresh off of the trains that Kaleem just spoke about, and also a plane from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where I live. I just came in this morning. I've missed the past couple of Drupal Camp Atlantas, but happy to be back. Always a good time, and thank you all for coming out today to talk about some project management things. I'm not the best projector in the world, so y'all in the back, just raise your hand if you're having trouble hearing me. As I said, I work at Media Current with some awesome teammates. I'm in from Baton Rouge. We're headquartered here in Alpharetta. A lot of you at the camp probably know of Media Current, but if you don't, we're a full-service digital agency, specializes in Drupal. We're a distributed team in something like 26 or so states now. I don't know, Paul, you can correct me, but if you've got projects you're working on and need a help, we've got a sponsor booth there. We're also hiring, so if you're interested in working on some Drupal sites and things with us, come visit us and say hello at the booth, and we'd love to chat. I'm going to talk about some really simple things today. I'll just warn y'all right now, it's really basic stuff. But you know what? In project management, when projects get in trouble, it's often really small, simple things that have led to that problem. So we're going to get to some simple things like making lists and how to use them well, and the foundation of those lists being good tickets that follow standards and best practices. How to follow up and verify that what's being done in those tickets is what needs to be done. And it's all about trying to prevent surprises. So we're going to talk about some tips and ways of reporting and trying to avoid those pitfalls in projects that I'm sure we've all experienced. So let's start with lists. You know, lists make the world go around, in my opinion. People have built late-night talk show careers on popular lists. You know, lots of things you can boil down to lists, including project management, and we'll talk about that in a minute. There's an interesting article in the New Yorker, I've linked it here, I'll share the slides afterwards, that I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the type of online news content that is an article in the form of a list. And the kind of clickbait, you know, top 5 reasons why you came to this session today. You know, I don't want to hear those. But they did a New Yorker style in-depth study into the science of why are those so effective? Why do people click through on those? You know, why does that work? A lot of good things there. And at the end of the day, you know, some of the takeaways from that, you know, as it says here, our brains crave things that are organized for us. You know, and that headline in the article in the form of a list gives you that defined endpoint and things like that. It also talked about grocery lists. And funny point there, and you might have experienced this, if you just take the time to write down a grocery list and then forget it at home and go to the store, you're still more likely to actually remember the stuff that you had on that list and get it than if you just went straight to the store. The art of an act of making the list is as important as what actually gets put on it. It's the thought that goes into it. In project management, all of these things, here we got a Agile Board here, they're all fancy lists. If you guys remember the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding, the character I love in that is the old guy Gus, and his point in there is, you give me a word, any word, and I'll show you that the meaning of it, at the root of it, is Greek. Well, you give me a project management methodology, any form, and I can probably show you that the root of it is a list. It's all just fancy, you know, dressing on top of it. You know, the picture here, this is a list that the 3M Corporation is very happy about because we're using all the sticky notes, right? Waterfall on here. That is, you know, the world's most optimistic view of the project. It's not worth the paper it's printed on, but it's a list. JIRA is, there's a lot of tools out there, you know, used for managing tickets and managing Scrum boards. JIRA is among, you know, one of the more common ones. We use it at Media Current. If you've ever been in the back end of JIRA and set things up, the Scrum board, all it is a saved filter search of a list of tickets, just presented in a fancy way. It's just a list. But there's a couple of things that get missed if we just rely on this board. This is a great way to scroll through and scan and try to get the current status as we sit right now in our project that we're working on, if, and only if, every one of those tickets is up to date and accurate and in the right place. How often is that really true? I don't know. Text is better. So this is a screenshot from Slack. That's a communication tool we use. You guys might be familiar. Of my colleague Kelly, one of our excellent client service managers, who's managing a project here. And this is just simple text, but there's a lot in here and a lot that went into making this, even though it probably didn't take her very much time. So let me walk you through. This was probably, if I remember correctly, for a client. There was a deliverable, a deadline to finish the homepage of a website. And what Kelly did, went through her JIRA and pulled out, here's the, I think we got 7 here, 7 things we have to finish to meet that deadline. She pulled that first thing that morning. The deadline was that day, right? They'd been working on it for a while. Captured it, put, you know, descriptions, ticket numbers. Now you notice here, this is 12:24 p.m. She had already compiled the list, and lunch hour update on my morning message. She came back here statusing on it, right? We got some done, things are in motion. She's now got all that in her head too. She's tracking it. We're not just relying on that JIRA board to be accurate. You know, that there's probably some check-ins and follow-ups, and we'll talk more about those. Same thing, you can extract, again, that act of making the list, just like a grocery list. This is a little bit further back when I was managing a project with a group of folks here, and this is a format. Again, it's not pretty, but that's not the point. It's accurate and it's current, and this would take me about 5 minutes every morning to pull out of JIRA, organize it based on who has what for the day, some notes on where we're at, maybe some blockers, whatever, and highlight what's complete. Ship it off. Everybody's got a clear picture for the day of what's going on, what's on their list. If somebody had some other idea of what was on theirs, we would probably have a communication around that. Simple text. That's not a pretty JIRA board, but that's much more effective. So what made up those lists? Tickets, right? Talk about those. Doesn't matter the system, any ticketing thing out there. I see Furf out there. We used to use Bugzilla, right? Back in the Turner days. JIRA, all of them. You know what they all have in common? And do you know why humans will always have a place in this? All of them have a text box with this blinking cursor that only gets filled out if somebody thinks about what goes in there to make a good ticket. We like to follow ticket best practices and standards to get some quality into that blinking cursor. So here's some characteristics of a good ticket that'll help you out. Detailed description that identifies what needs to be done. Walks through and gives information. Might have user stories, other things in there. Acceptance criteria. How are we going to know when this ticket is done? Let's put it up front in the ticket before we start working on it. That'd be a good thing to know. Link to the things. What I mean by that, if you've ever given a ticket status and you say, this is deployed to staging, you know, if you use development and staging environments, move on through your workflow. That might be meaningful to some people on the project, but you know it would be better this is deployed to staging, and put the link to the thing on staging. That helps you a couple ways. Number one, to get the link, you have to go to staging and grab it, which means you're now confirming that it did deploy to staging. And number two, the person coming behind you, they might not know where staging is on this project, but you've given them a link. Now they can find it. Again, simple little things, right? But multiplied over many tickets, improve the health of the project. When we're doing statusing on the ticket, what's done, what's left? Updates like that are kind of insurance of not getting disrupted and pinged by the project manager, because they can just go and read the updates and have all that versus having to ask you. And testing instructions. If there's any QA people in here, you'd probably give a amen to that. But again, how will we know the definition of done, and how will we test it to get there? And what's great with testing instructions would be linking to the things within those instructions. The text here is probably kind of small. For our ticket best practices, we provide kind of a template in JIRA Markdown format that folks can kind of pull from. So it's more, again, that blinking cursor, empty text box. Here's some stuff to fill out to make sure we're hitting all those categories that we just talked about. That slide didn't give the space for all the documentation we have of our standards, but the point is to have them, try to follow it for a quality ticket. And when we do have quality tickets, my colleague Tobias has made some trophy images that we like to award in our trophy case at Media Current to enforce when folks have followed those standards and done well, and highlight those so that others can see what a good ticket looks like. So we give out a Golden Ticket of the Week award and link to it and show the rest of the team. Folks get excited when they win one of these. We've got a few more of our trophies that we'll share later. I'm probably not doing the best of service to Tobias's handiwork here, because I had to blow up the image a little bit to fit on the slide. But so we've got our tickets. We're trying to build our list. We probably have to confirm status on these tickets in the queue. How we're doing, right? Talking to the team members working on them. And this is, if anybody here's ever attended classes in a journalism school, this is a common phrase that you get. The reporters are told, don't just take the words that somebody's giving you for a quote for your story. Trust, but then go verify. That would be the other way to phrase this. So how do we do that? How do we verify the information that's in the tickets, and the accuracy of where things are, or get through maybe a lot of technical speak into the heart of what the true status is? Well, here's a few examples of how you can do that. Common quote that I hear a lot: well, it's working on my local. Right? We're a distributed team, like I said. Somebody might be well across the country. I can't see your local. Actually, I can. My response to it's working on my local, great, let's look together on a screen share. I want to see it working on your local, right? It's working on my local is sometimes a good way to deflect that it's not quite done yet, and that's why it's not in the, so again, trust but verify. Another good way to follow through and help the team out as a project manager is to just ask good questions and offer up help. So this, again, another Slack exchange. We've got some developers talking about some trouble they've run into. And again, my colleague Kelly here, she's maybe not going to know how to code these things or how they're built, but she can still help here, and here's how she did it. So they were having trouble seeing the videos behave the way they were supposed to on the project they're working on. Couldn't find them. One developer's asking another. That might have led to like a screen share, and two developers now disrupted from making progress during the day to try to troubleshoot this together. Kelly can help that by just asking, can you list the steps you took here? Right? Maybe I can help. So what followed this was, okay, yeah, I did this, and this, right? In 2 minutes, we got to the bottom of it. The videos hadn't been published yet. To see the videos, you have to publish them. Less disruption, found the status, moved on from the problem, didn't take half a day troubleshooting it. As a project manager, you might not feel things like code repositories are the place for you. This is a screenshot of Bitbucket. Don't be afraid. There's a lot of good information in here. This is just the top half of a pull request in Bitbucket. There's a bunch of code down below here. I didn't bother to screenshot that because that's not, nobody needs me going down in there in the code, right? But up top here, here's some things that we could learn from a pull request as a project manager. Number one, where's the status? So it's open, which means somebody's coded some stuff and submitted it, but it's not merged in. So if I were to go looking at this on my development environments and things, I'm not going to see it yet. It's still somewhere along the process. We use internal code review processes with our team. So first step after the pull request, we've got reviewers here. And so if nobody's approved it yet, I see no check marks. If somebody's approved it, I see check marks. That tells me a lot as a project manager, right? Because sometimes what will happen is there's a lot of tickets, a lot of pull requests happening on a busy project. And I can go look in the pull request queue and see which ones are out there and are just kind of sitting. Maybe there's 3 or 4 that have been approved, but nobody's merged them in yet. That gives me some context to, go check in with the person responsible, usually the lead developer. Hey, or you've got 3 or 4 here. When you get a chance, can you merge them in, right? That keeps the project moving along. Or what you might see as well, there are no approvals. It'll say, if there's comments and things from the code review process, feedback, something somebody needs to go back and answer or fix. Well, I can't read code, but I can read comments, right? So maybe the developer's not yet aware that he needs to address some comments in the pull request. As a project manager, well, that's my spot. I can go, move those things along and help alert them that that's waiting on them. Or maybe it's just sitting waiting for a review and everybody else is busy, nobody's had a chance to review it yet. But if I've got a deadline and I need this to go through today, I can go hunt down somebody and help the developer along by finding a reviewer for them while they're moving on to some other tasks. A lot of good stuff in code repository. You might not think of that as a place for project managers, but that's a great place for them. Again, another word. What you're doing here is you're solving problems, right? You're preventing blockers, following through, verifying. If you aren't averse to foul language, the movie Pulp Fiction has a nice scene with Winston Wolfe. That's what this is based on. Go see that scene. He's doing that, right? He's solving the problems that they're having with a car, and I'll leave it there. But it's a great scene of kind of getting to the heart of the matter by asking questions, following through, and kind of giving clear priority and directions. So we've been working on our lists, which are built of tickets, which use best practices and standards. And we're going through and verifying the status of those and moving things along in our project. Now comes time to report on that to our stakeholders. Our goal there, for the most part, is no surprises, right? Giving clear, good information to the folks that are depending on this project and its success. One thing that we like to talk about a lot is our goal is not for the stakeholders to be happy. Because if you're worried about happy, you're worried about emotion. Our goal is for the stakeholders to be satisfied. And there's a difference, right? In this world and the type of work that we do, a lot of times people aren't excited about spending money to upkeep their website, right? It's kind of like you're not really excited about spending money to keep up your car, right? Are you ever, So the goal in that industry and in that scenario is, are you satisfied that a professional job is done? You've been informed about what you got and it was done well and done right? That's different than happy. You might be happy about that too. But if you're worried about happy, then you're going to overreact to mad as well, right? We want to stay in the middle of that. So here's some thoughts about, how to be in the middle of that and work on the satisfied part instead of the emotion. Ever been frustrated at a vending machine when you put your money in and your thing doesn't drop down? You know, what's part of it, the root of that is the helpless feeling. There's nobody around that can fix it. I wouldn't recommend following through like the guy from The Office here, but it's helpless, right? You're dependent on a tool and automation and things, and if it goes wrong, you're stuck. Same thing on your project. Don't just rely on your JIRA board, right? Don't rely on your tools. There needs to be a human involved, providing context, there to help when they need, right? But let's not go overboard the other way. My project's going fine, you know, we're working really hard. Yeah, we feel good about it. That's not helpful, right? That's going to lead to those emotions like we're talking about, good or bad. So let's come back to my friend Kelly and her list. Tell me if you were the stakeholder and you were dependent on that home page being finished based on the work she's done with the list, and you come ask me, and I'm Kelly, we're going to finish the home page today? Here's the update I can give you if I've built a list like Kelly. Well, we started the day with 7 tasks we needed to complete to wrap up the home page today. As of noon, we've got 4 of them in QA. Good to go. Checking those out now. We've got 1 in review with the developer, in progress right now. And we've got 2 that still need to get started, and I'm working on those assignments right now. Now, is that better than, go look at the JIRA board. Is that better than, yeah, we're working hard, we think we're going to make it there, right? Speak from data, right? And you've got it because you built the list. And this works. I don't know if Rebecca's in here, but Rebecca's our wonderful HR coordinator, and these things, like I said, lists kind of make the world go around. These same things we're talking about here work for her as well. As our HR coordinator, she's getting requests from all angles all day long, and it's a challenge to organize, similar to a project. So we actually talked about a few of these things to see if this might help her. And after 1 week, she posted this for me yesterday. Right? Like, look at all I closed out this week. Yay, right? You know, hey, my list, right? It worked. Again, no surprises. We like to give out the award for folks that are actively engaged in these steps and preventing the surprises, keeping our clients satisfied. So what all this is about is, what your list does is it defines an endpoint that we have to finish the home page by today, and here's how we're going to get here. We have to finish this sprint this week, and here's what's going to be in it, right? When your work starts to feel like a list, it's got an endpoint, so there's an end in sight. If your work feels like a Twitter or Facebook feed that is an endless scroll, not a good feeling, right? Everybody on your project, as much as we like to pretend that web development's any different than anybody else in the world, they're all humans, want to get to an endpoint to their day. There's somebody, something they also need to get to in their life. My pal Murray here, right? I love Christmas Eve in our industry because it's the one time of year, regardless of what people's religions are, that everybody shuts up and gets off of all the boards and everything. That's an end, right? So you get to that end and you get to move on and spend some quality time outside of it. And managing, if you can help your teams manage to that quality time, get that sense of completion, help your clients or your stakeholders get to that sense of completion with their milestones, their projects, they're going to be satisfied that they've gotten to the end and can step away. One more trophy. I think I say too much, so I don't think I'm ready for this one yet, but we also have a presentation award there. I wanted to do one more thing, do a little demo here, live demo. And see if we can't can't give an example of building a list and checking a status like I was talking about. I see KB in the back there. So, Kevin, I'm going to pick on you. Give me a second here. Let me pull up a text. What's that? Pretty much. Hang on a second. I got to get out of full screen mode so we can do this. Okay, this is what I might do if I were checking in with Kevin today. Pretend you can't see the screen. KB, how you doing? How you been today? Where have you? Did you go to any trainings or anything this morning?
No, I didn't. I talked to some other people. So
okay, who did you talk with?
Some of our friends at another client area.
Okay. Cool. I know you came here. What other sessions do you need to check out today?
So we're gonna look and see. Haven't looked at the schedule yet. So we'll look and see after this and see what we find out after that.
Well,
I believe it went after this one.
I know our friend Bill
Yeah.
is presenting on a topic that might be related to some of those meetings you had. So you might want to check that one out, right? What about after that? What else you got going on today?
So might hit up some dinner soon and work on my presentation for tomorrow.
Okay.
So that's all ready to go.
Presentation for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Are your slides coming along?
It's pretty close. Had some good drinks last night working on it.
Remind me again, what's the topic?
We're going to talk about the editorial user experience. How to make the editorial experience better.
Okay. How many slides you got in it?
I think we have around 40 slides right now. You got to double that, I think, by tomorrow.
Double that, so you
need
8, so you're about 50%. Yeah. Okay. Feeling good about it?
Feeling really good, yeah.
What else you got for tomorrow?
So we're gonna wake up early, get some coffee in, give a presentation,
Okay.
and then look from there, work out the group for a little bit, make sure everyone's got talks some good Drupal shop a little bit, and try and check out a couple of more presentations along the way for the day tomorrow.
Okay, I'm pretending like we're working on a project here, right? But I'm just taking some notes so the data. So now I know if I'm dependent on Kevin for something, right? Where he's at, where he's been, if sessions represented, other tickets that he might pick up or something. Now I know, he's probably doesn't have he's got some space this afternoon. I might go find something for him, like a session. But I also know he's got a deadline in the morning that he's halfway done with. Sorry, I'm sabotaging you. I told you I was going to sabotage your session, right? So I know that's going to be his focus for this afternoon, tomorrow morning. Then he frees up for working on a project together again. But I heard in there, hadn't looked at the schedule yet, right? That's my chance as a project manager. If we're talking about tickets in a project board, I'll probably go look at it and give him an idea or two of what he might want to go check out. What's that?
Now I'll go see Bill.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you for playing along, KB. Questions?
How do you coach a team member on a project that you're working on to self-report in a way that sort of exercises you some through when you might not have time? Like a lot of times I feel like we're in, maybe a 15-minute stand-up and it's my ticket. So you might not have the ability to go through that detail, but you still need to help them make decisions based on a couple of details. And tips might go about coaching a person to help them identify or surface things to their project manager in a way that helps them be more proactive.
Yeah, good question. So I think I'm being recorded here. So to repeat, you're asking about self-reporting, right? If they're coming to stand-ups and not giving a lot of detailed information, you know, it's taking extra time, follow-up. So number one is note what you can there and make a mental note. All right, I'm going to have to follow up with this person, help them form their update for tomorrow. Maybe point them in an example of an update somebody else gave, and just show, just like we did with Kelly's list, here's the information and the data in here that's useful, right? And this is why it's helpful to me. Otherwise, I would take the time to do just like I did with KB there, just talk it through with them, capture it for them, put it out there, and then show them what was captured and why it was formatted that way. So, you know, just a little hands-on training. Your point was sometimes you don't have the time to do that. My opinion on that is, I showed Murray up there, right? Murray had a dog trainer that made the point one time that said, you're going to invest the time one way or another. You're either going to invest the time up front to train what you want you know, your dog to do, or you're going to invest the time every day dealing with the dog not doing what you want it to do. Now, that sounds terrible because I just, but you're going to invest the time either way, right? You're going to invest the time having to speak on that person's behalf for the stakeholders you're dependent to, right? And having to go back and follow up and everything. Or you can stop right there, you know, early in the project, hopefully take that cycle, try to get that, you know, improvement in place so that you're getting better information so you can pass it along. And a lot of times that starts with just explaining why that's important, right? Here's why this is helpful to me. Here's what I was able to do with it. Other questions? Yes?
If you have a JIRA ticket, where you have like multiple owner, or there is a sequence of who will be acting on that next, how do you handle the situation? Because JIRA typically allows one person to be assigned.
So the question is, what if you have a JIRA ticket in any system that has multiple owners? The short answer to that is you don't have one ticket then. You probably have multiple. If it's got multiple owners, how can you break that down so that you can have a ticket for each of the parts that the people can own? Now the other thing you have is a workflow where a ticket will flow through different people that play different roles, like it'll be assigned over to the person to test it, right? But if it's a development task and you've got 2 developers assigned to one ticket, you can ask them to update how they're each doing on their pieces, but you would probably get a better result to break that into 2 tickets. That's probably a bigger thing that can be made into smaller things. Just like with the whole list and, you know, the endless scroll of the Twitter feed versus a defined endpoint, more concrete, you know, actionable, cross-offable tickets is going to make everybody feel better and feel like they're making progress, versus having a bigger one that represents too much and is going to take longer. So my advice would be to break it up if you can.
How do you organize and archive all your text files, lists, and you find them activation back into JIRA so you match up the project or something?
Yeah, good question. So, and I actually should have mentioned that when I showed the email version. Bear with me one second. So an example like this. Well, number one is archiving in my email, but that's not what you're looking for, right? What I would do to compile this one tomorrow is I would start with what I had yesterday, right? I'm going to pull the stuff from the JIRA board, but I'm also going to compare. Because the other benefit of, you know, taking stuff out, not relying on your tools, and taking it into a manual, very simple, right? So that we don't have to spend too much time on it, but taking it into this is, if ticket 1521, I've had to physically put it in a list 3 days in a row, that tells me I might want to go talk to Matt about that ticket and why it's been on the list 3 days in a row. Maybe he's blocked with it. Maybe it's a ticket that involves multiple people and needs to be made smaller. Whatever it may be. So to answer your question about archive, I don't worry about these things living on forevermore. That is what your JIRA board's for, right? And that's why these all reference back to tickets and all the detail and everything's in there. Your list that you're manually doing expires as of the end of the period that you're updating them and creating a new one. So this is today's list. Tomorrow's list will be tomorrow's. But I'm going to reference this first, and then I'm going to go pull from the board, smash it all together, send it out. It's shelf life, just like my grocery list, right? It's for today.
Yes.
The example you raised about asking Kelly whether or not a project will be finished today, the short answer to that question was she doesn't know.
Right.
So they should give you enough data for you to make a determination as to whether or not the project will be completed.
Right. So if you get asked, is something going to be finished today or by whatever deadline, right, and you don't know, what do you do with that, right? So that's where speaking it from data comes in handy. That's where, how many slides do you got in that thing? How many have you done, right? Now, I know he's at 50%. Now, experience would have to tell me whether he can finish the rest of the 50% tonight. I think he can, but we'll see. I'm picking on you. But, yeah, yeah. Right, well, the person that's asking Kelly the question is a stakeholder that isn't in all that data. They just want the high-level status. Are we going to make it, right? And the better answer is to have that based on actual numbers of things and data, not just, yeah, I think so. We're looking good, right? It's effective to say things like, we've finished 4 of the 7 things we need to do to get there. We've got 3 left. We've got rest of today. I've got 2 people on it, Things like that is how you answer that, talking about percentages and scale and scope of things. And then if that data is concerning, 3 in 1 day, that's where you can have a detailed discussion about what those 3 things are. That's where your ticket best practices are going to come in, because you can pull up the ticket and it's going to say what's done, what's left, what's the definition of done. It's going to have all that information in there, versus it just being a ticket with a title that says make homepage. Right? The only way I'm going to get status of that is to go talk to everybody that's working on it, right, and disrupt them from doing the things. So it's, to be able to give that status, you have to know your data, and you'll know your data well if you're doing things like making that list in the morning and you've already kind of got that, and then you're referencing it throughout as things are getting crossed off.
How do they evaluate archiving daily updates as far as, you want to analyze team efficiencies and things like that? You want to say, hey, notice Matt had a problem. You also had the same problem about a month ago at the same time.
Right.
You ever use that to kind of analyze performance, things like that?
So I would use the list to reference, where we're at in a particular day. Again, this one's being emailed, so it's not like email of old where you're on an Exchange server or whatever. It's on Google. I can go search it, right? I can go find the things. But the type of stuff you're talking about, doing analysis, that's where the data and the tickets and using your tool to perform that analysis and infer from it is going to come in. So are you doing time entries and time logging with the tickets, right? If you are, then you can do a lot of analysis with that, right? How many days does it take to complete things? JIRA's got all of that, but again, don't just rely on the tool. You're going to want to go perform analysis on that and look into it and pull that out. But that's the home for that type of stuff, and that's what those tools are built for.
Yes.
Any word of advice on smaller, shorter projects, like 2 weeks time projects, how to approach them and get results the best way?
Yeah, so a lot of the examples I'm showing is, multiple people, big project, longer time frame of things happening and maybe sprints within it. You're talking about it's a smaller project that's a week or 2 weeks. You know, it would still work really well for that? A daily or twice a day list, right? Here's all the things we have to get done. If we're, you know, whether it's in a week or a year, right? In some ways, it's better on a smaller one because it can be more detailed. There's only so much you're going to get through in a week anyway, right? So I think it applies, you know, anywhere depending on the scale. I heard a description of Agile and other methodologies. At the end of the day, it's all just writing a list of things down that we need to get done and then crossing them off until we're done, right? So yeah, I would say, you know, you don't need all these fancy tools, especially on a shorter term one, just like you don't need fancy tools to do your grocery shopping, but, you know, it helps to have a list. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, how do we do on time? Cool, we've got an extra few minutes. I'll hang out here if y'all want to ask anything else, but thank you for coming, appreciate it.